Bo,
Hmm.
we've got a guest.
Have we?
Yeah, we do. Yeah,
Oh, good. Cool. Who
it
is it?
is the one, Lauren Chen. The what was it? Roaming millennial. That was one of the No, is it roaming? No, that's not the one. Is it? Is that the one? Oh, it is the one. Yeah, it is the one. She's nodding in the background. What was the other one? Pseudo intellectual. That was the other one as well, wasn't it? I think. Pretty certain. Many nicknames. Anyway, let's bring her on.
Bring
We'll
her
have
on.
to.
Let's talk
How you
about it.
doing?
Hi, guys. Thank you so much for having me.
Hi, Lauren. Thanks for your time. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I've been watching both of you for a long time now. So, yeah, I really appreciate you having me on. And yeah, love the content.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, nice to have you on. What? Just because I messed it all up, give us a list of your pseudonyms, your alternative
Sure.
names.
Well, Roaming Millennial was a pseudonym because I started making content back in 2016 where everyone was an anonymous avatar. I think you used to be totally anonymous too, Nate, from what I
Yeah,
remember. I
yeah.
remember I found one of your first video I ever saw of you was this like really intense breakdown of the alien lore. It was like 2 hours or something. I thought it was great. And I don't think you had had a face reveal back then. But yeah, I used to
No.
be Roaming Millennial, just an avatar. And then Pseudo
Right.
Intellectual was the name of a show that I had with Blaze TV. So
Okay. Right.
as you
Right.
can
Right.
tell, naming stuff, not one of my strengths. That is always the hardest thing. But yeah, we'll probably get into it. I've been off of a social media sabbatical for a little bit. I'm just getting back into doing content and haven't really done any long form, really live streams. I think you guys are like the third one I've done.
We're getting in there quick. You see, we're getting in there
Yeah,
quick. Well,
for
so
sure.
all right. Well, yeah. Should we just get to the nub of the issue? I guess you've been
I
off
mean, we,
social media for a while. Why have you been
yeah.
off social media for a
Mm.
while?
Tell us.
Okay, so this is a long story. Now, when I introduce myself, I'm like, I don't even know where to start. There's a lot to go over. So I used to do my own YouTube videos and had two channels. One was focusing on like politics, the other focusing more on entertainment stuff. Mediaholic, that's another channel that I had. And I actually quite like that name though. But we also had basically a digital media brand called Tenet, where we were licensing content from other creators, basically around, dissident right wing media. There were a pretty, I would say, broad depth of like different opinions. We had Lauren Southern, Taylor Hanson, Tim Pool, Benny Johnson. And I mean, essentially, what I'm probably infamous for now is the fact that there was an entire FBI investigation into our company, and two of the people who we worked in conjunction with, they weren't our employees. We didn't hire them or anything like that. They were indicted by the Biden DOJ for basically a FARA violation. So that's when the government claims that you are representing a foreign government, but you didn't register with them. And so one September day in 2024, my husband and I were woken to about 30 armed FBI agents at our door, about to break down our door because apparently we had taken too long from when they announced themselves to answer the door, which is like pretty crazy. Like I remember we were sleeping and they had woken us up, and that's why we had taken and we hustled, and it's a good thing that we did because it would have been an even worse encounter somehow if they had to
Mm.
break down the door. But what followed was basically, I think they were there for 4 hours, a 4 hour raid on our house where they separated us and they searched every square inch of our house. And they took all of our electronic devices. So our laptops, memory cards, our phones. And actually, we only recently got back our phones. Keep in mind, this was in 2024. So we only got back our electronics once the investigation was all closed. But, and then they left. And we were kind of in a daze. Our neighbors, they had a giant FBI vehicle outside of like our neighbors, we were the talk of the town. And it was such a strange position to be in because we had been informed that they had a search warrant. and that there were no charges against us, but there was an investigation that was going on. And basically we were left without phones. Like, we knew we wanted to get a lawyer, but we didn't have a way to do that because we had no electronics. And it was we had a talk like, okay, what do we do now? We went to Walmart and we bought some phones. The cheapest phones they had were like $50 with a Samsung. I think it's like an A15, a phone, by the way, I do not recommend unless you have to have a phone. That was my phone for the past year. It's not a good one. I'm very happy to have my other phone back. But yeah, we started looking up lawyers because, FBI rating you. It's like, okay, well, should probably get legal representation, which was an interesting thing because I had immigration lawyers that I knew. I had contract lawyers. I didn't have a criminal defense lawyer, let alone one that dealt with federal issues. I didn't even know anyone who I thought would have a lawyer like that. So I'm just like randomly cold calling different law offices, trying to find someone who would know, I guess, like have enough familiarity with what we were dealing with, who could represent us. And what also made this more challenging is that simultaneously the feds had also seized our bank accounts. So I don't know if you guys have dealt with lawyers. They're not a cheap bunch. And when feds raid your house, you're going to want a lawyer. But if Merrick Garland, the attorney general at the time, starts basically accusing you of trying to subvert the presidential election, you're going to want a good one. And we're trying to call family, see if we can borrow money basically for a legal retainer. And we're kind of wrapped up in what's going on our end, but then, and we don't even have phones at this point. So like, we're trying to get our like we have Wi-Fi at our place, but we're trying to get back into like have AT&T transfer our numbers to our new devices. And then simultaneously, I see that there's a bunch of numbers that I don't know because I don't have any of my contacts on this device blowing up my phone. And that's kind of when it set in that, okay, it's not just that these people that we worked with they've been indicted and are being investigated. That's when I kind of became aware that, yes, this was part of a larger, I guess, narrative that the Biden DOJ was trying to spin, that not only, are those two individuals under indictment, but they're actually accusing us. We're not charged with anything, but in their kind of roundabout way, they're trying to paint a picture that our content is propaganda and it's pro-Kremlin content, which, when I first started hearing the reports that were coming out, I was kind of like, okay, well, that's obviously so stupid. Like this is Tim Pool's content, Mitty Johnson's content. Like Tenet doesn't even have kind of editorial oversight. We're just licensing. They upload whatever they want. I thought there's no way that this narrative is going to run, but no, actually it did. A lot of people were buying it. I was getting journalists emailing me talking about our pro-Kremlin content, and I was really, really confused by it. And simultaneously we're trying to track down a lawyer. We find a guy who I don't want to say what other people he's represented, but he's definitely dealt with this type of thing before. And he says basically he's a pragmatic person, and I really appreciate his guidance. Hey, we never got arrested, never got any charges, so I've got to give him props for that, even though he was ridiculously expensive. He basically runs us through the fact that usually indictments, where they announce what you're being charged with, those are usually about 4 to 5 pages. It just kind of lays out the facts. This is what we think you did. This is kind of what we believe a timeline was, and this is what the charges would be. There you go. The indictment that was related to our case was about 30 some pages. And he says, you usually don't see that unless it's also doubling as a press release, which is what has exactly happened in this case. And he also explained that the fact that they unsealed and released this indictment when they didn't have the individuals, in custody, and had no plans to have them in custody because they're not in the country. He explained that they never actually believed that this indictment would go to court. It's basically just a press release. And it's like,
So
okay, well, what does Yeah, basically, because there's a lot of stuff in there that is inaccurate, misleading, or if it is real, was news to me. But it's not the type of situation where that's ever actually going to go to court and they're ever actually going to have to prove any of it. And right now our investigation into us is closed, but that indictment is still kind of looming there. And unless the DOJ formally, I guess, drops all the charges, which they don't really have incentive to do because, oopsie, sorry, my desk is one of those raisy ones. I accidentally pressed a button. It's just kind of there. And so it was a very awkward position to be in. Our lawyer told us, like, point blank, you don't have any benefit really in saying anything publicly. Probably any lawyer worth his salt, if you're under an investigation, is going to say don't talk about this. But I think that's especially true when you have a simultaneous media campaign against you, which is taking, if the indictment itself was basically fan fiction, then what the media started saying, that was just totally removed. Now, all of a sudden I'm a spy, a Kremlin agent, all of these things. And I think it very quickly lost sight of the fact, the stories, that this is a YouTube channel that we're talking about. And it was just an insane time because, we started getting death threats. Our address was doxxed, so we had to leave. We didn't feel safe staying at our place that was raided. Even, I mean, regardless of the death threats, it would have been just super awkward anyway. But definitely with all of the threats that were coming our way, we didn't feel comfortable. So we had to find somewhere else to stay, basically as soon as possible. I'm getting all of these requests for interviews, and I'm just like, even if my lawyer hadn't said anything, I definitely would not be the type to run to CNN. The people who are simultaneously, I see them lying about me, and then the same journalists are asking me for comment. And it's like, oh, you guys can just fuck off entirely. Excuse my language.
That's
yeah,
all,
it was.
we love
Can I ask
some
for
fruity language
a
here.
little bit of clarity? So you weren't charged with anything?
No, and that's
And
something that
so,
a lot of people got wrong. People were
but so
reporting that
the
we were charged, and we
but so
never were.
the indictment then, correct me if I'm wrong,
Right.
but the indictment isn't against you. You're just mentioned
No.
in it.
Yeah, I'm
But
alluded to
But
in it.
that's enough for them to freeze your bank accounts.
Yes. Yes,
Wow.
and it is
Wow.
also enough for them. So I'm alluded to in it. I'm referenced, and the way that the DOJ usually works and law enforcement general is, if you're not being charged with anything, they try not to name you. But they basically, in the 30 pages, they were given as much information to people as they could to be like, we're not going to name them, but also I'm going to include a URL to their website in this indictment that makes it very obvious. So yeah, we were never charged with anything. And that was something that was very wrongly reported by a lot of people. There was an investigation, but we were never charged. Our company was never charged. Our company was never shut down or anything like that, but they did seize our bank accounts. And because of forfeiture, and we're still trying to sort this out, they have not returned any of that to us. And that's something we actually didn't become aware of until we were informed that the investigation was officially closed. The next question was like, okay, when can we get our stuff back? And the DOJ was like, you don't, which was
Sorry.
very frustrating.
Sorry, let me just interject there. So, and we'll get into it a little bit more, I guess, timelines and stuff like that. But I just want to clarify. So, they froze your bank accounts. Have they? And investigations closed. Business wasn't closed, but they've taken everything. So all the financial, all of the money, and you're just never getting that back, even though they've closed the investigation and you're not charged with anything.
Yes. Yeah, unless we're trying to, we've asked our lawyer, what can we do about that? And he says, well, basically you can take them to court. But the thing is, so I think with like forfeiture rulings, they can just seize anywhere up to $500,000. So, we had less than that in there. But our lawyer, again, pragmatic guy, I love that about him. He did inform us that because of the amount that was seized versus the amount that it would take take the government to court. And the fact that we may or may not win, he's basically informed us that he does not believe it is worth it to try to get the money back through the court system. He says, like, the amount of money you have, it's just
that makes sense on balance,
Yeah.
but that's still just insane.
Like, that's an
Yes.
injustice, isn't it? Surely there's no other way for me. There's no other way to characterize that than an injustice. I mean, I thought it was supposed to be the land of the free. It's a bit rich for an Englishman to be taking the mickey out of the liberty that you guys enjoy in the United States. However, that, you know, that is, there's no other way. That's just a state-sponsored theft. They've stolen that from you.
Yeah.
I don't know any other way to describe it, really.
Yeah, and I mean, we're you know, I'm going on like 8 months removed from the news that I wouldn't be getting it back, and then, you know, even longer than that from when it was actually seized. But yeah, it's a gut punch. This was all of our savings, and, you know, the media didn't really talk about this, but because the DOJ didn't want to talk about this. But, you know, Tenet, the company that we had, money that we had made with contracts from Blaze, from TPUSA, it was in that bank account. You know, money that they know isn't coming from anywhere fishy, right? These are other American companies. We had put our money into this company because we were trying to grow it. We believed in it, and they seized all of that. And, you know, something else that was frustrating looking at the media reports, and what some people are still saying, is that the way that the DOJ spun the indictment and the way that the media reported on, they were acting as if our entire budget for the company, all of our employees, all of our content, all the sets, the interviews, operating costs, everything was just money that I was getting personally, which was pretty crazy. We operated, I think, on a pretty lean budget compared to a lot of these other media companies. But I was also essentially being accused by people in the media and of, you know, taking like millions of dollars. And it's like, no, this was our entire budget for our company, all of the people that worked for the company, all of the different contracts that we had with these other content creators, you know, that covered their production costs, the sets, flying, and guests. They were acting as if all of that was just going into our bank accounts, which was not the case.
So I'm hearing you should really open an account in Luxembourg or possibly the Cayman Islands going forward.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Basically, yeah. Yeah, because the you know, another part of it is that,
half joking about that, but now I've said it out loud, maybe not so much. I don't really. I mean,
yeah, I mean, like,
Pretty
we're big
prudent.
fans of crypto. You know, because of this, we did have some crypto, thankfully, that has kind of, you know, helped us get by. And, you know, what was also frustrating is that they froze our bank accounts at the beginning of the month. So they took all of our funds, and then because it was at the beginning of the month and it was like over Labor Day weekend or something, there were a bunch of payments that had been charged, but that hadn't gone through that account, if that made sense, but that we still owed. So we still owed, like, our employees hadn't been paid. The people, the actual, like, W-2, not just our contractors, but our employees hadn't been paid for the previous 2 weeks because they had frozen the bank account. So now we were personally liable for that money. Our corporate charge card, where, you know, we were putting everything for the company, travel expenses for people, that payment didn't go through. We were also personally liable for that now. So we had, in addition to all of our funds being taken, now we had tens of thousands of dollars of extra costs that we had no way to pay for with the company money. Also, all the legal fees. Also, we can't make any more content because now we're under this, like, whirlwind scandal. So it's basically the most screwed I've ever been in my entire life. I don't recommend it. But yeah, they were really trying to do everything they possibly could to destroy us without actually having to take us to court or prove anything.
So the thing that keeps coming up into my mind while you're speaking is the real crux of it is is it that there's someone, or maybe a team of people at the Department of Justice somewhere in Washington, D.C., and you're on their radar, literally you, is on their radar as like a political enemy, like a Biden era one, I imagine. And they just cook up an idea. How can we screw with this person's life and money without ever having to take them to court? And they come up with this plan. And I mean, is that what it is? Is that really what it is? There's some people, some Biden leftists or whoever they are at the DOJ it purely comes from them. None of this wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for that. Is that what it is? Ultimately?
Well, I mean, objectively, none of this wouldn't have happened. And it's funny because now that there have been more investigations into how the Biden DOJ was weaponized, and not just like with our case, but this is kind of a broader framework. There were some other Trump associates that were actually charged under like FARA violations because they deemed that the, connections that they might have had to people overseas were like tantamount to foreign interference. But basically, there was an entire project, Arctic Frost, where there were TPUSA individuals and the organization as a whole that were monitored by the FBI. I was part of TPUSA at the time. And what's interesting is that when you look at the DOJ now, they've made it very clear that FARA, which is kind of like this pretty nebulous term that the Foreign Agents Registration Act, I believe it is. It says that like if you're engaged in like lobbying for another country, you have to register. There are people who have actually been convicted of FARA violations. Usually it includes things like taking bribes from foreign governments, and now you're trying to actually like lobby for political changes. So I think there's a senator that was recently charged and convicted of a FARA violation, but applying it to this entire case simply relates to digital media. No one here is a politician. And basically the crux of the actual indictment hinges on the idea that people who are not in this country need to register with FARA in order to post stuff on social media. It's a ridiculous assertion. And, the DOJ now with the new team under Trump, they've made it clear that when we're talking about FARA, because this is such a it was weaponized to such a crazy extent, we're actually going to be looking in the future for people who are engaging in activity that's more similar to traditional espionage, actual corruption, taking bribes or kickbacks from actual governments, trying to change laws in America, versus, a lot of the Trump people. These are people who've had, who'd maybe done like interviews or things with RT, but these, we're not politicians. And so, being held to the idea that we're somehow like foreign agents, spies, or assets, it's pretty crazy. And, if stuff like this ever does go to court, I'd actually be kind of interested to see how a prosecutor would balance this with things like the First Amendment. But anyway, it's basically just a kind of a legal headache that, ultimately does just hinge on some people in the Biden camp being butthurt that we had a lot of popular commentators who were pro-Trump. They didn't like that, and they basically did whatever they could to take us down, but again, without actually having to take us to court.
It's a hilarious sort of hypocrisy, isn't it? That you got this, what was it, FARA law, and yet you've got all the Israel lobby. It's like, whoa, I guess that's because it's registered. But still, it's a little bit.
It's not registered, actually. APAC, no, APAC does not have to register under FARA, but it's been pretty crazy, like from my perspective, looking at people kind of openly doing what we were accused of doing with absolutely no repercussions. And not only that, but, did you guys follow the US aid scandal?
Yeah. Mental.
When it was revealed that the American government through USAID, they were funding the BBC and all of these other, I think 8 out of 10 Ukrainian outlets were also funded by USAID. And it's like, again, everything you have accused us of, other people are actually doing it. But apparently it's just not a problem. And this is what you've accused us of, not even what we were actually doing. But, I've just been kind of looking at the news cycle and just thinking like, okay, that's fun. It's been a big lesson in double standards for me.
So to the nearest million rubles, how much did Mr. Putin put in your account? How much did he personally transfer to your personal account? That's what we want to know.
Yeah, that's what they want to know. And I just want to say, I have never met Putin. He's he's not my president. I don't hope to upset him, I suppose. He seems like a scary guy, but I have nothing to do with Putin. And it's been pretty crazy because again, through the whirlwind of like the story getting amplified and kind of distorted further, even through the media, it's like been changed that not only is Tenet Russian propaganda, but also my personal content. And it's like, guys, if there was some smoking gun connecting me and my content to like Russia, do you think they would not have released that? Like the only example of like alleged pro-Kremlin content that they actually included in the indictment was the fact that we shared a Tucker Carlson clip where he went to a Russian supermarket. That was their example in the indictment.
What?
So I mean, I feel pretty good that we were investigated all of my electronics, and that was what they came back with.
That's mental.
I mean,
that's actually an indictment that we shared the Tucker Carlson clip.
Anything, is it? That's not even like tissue paper thin. That's nothing. That's nothing. That isn't anything.
Well, it's not even our content like that. We shared it on social media.
So
a lot of people do.
So you're saying you haven't got a Kremlin handler, for the record.
I don't have a Kremlin.
Again, handler. I'm joking. It's so unfair, isn't it? It's so madly unfair. Like, how is that? It's truly absurd. And the idea that the Republicans accuse Trump and the Democrats accuse Trump and the Republicans of weaponizing, of doing lawfare stuff. And yet your story of that, because it broke when it first broke. It was like it would go around Twitter or whatever. You know, Lauren Chen's in the pay of the Russians. You know what? It's God, the unfairness of it.
Yeah, and
it's staggering, isn't it? Really,
it is. And this also came. I mean, I felt very violated and disgusted for many reasons, but it's also, I felt like I was being used as a puppet to try and sow unrest between two global powers that were, that are still on edge. And I'm kind of like, wait a second, like, no one's told me what to say. Like, don't use this as like, if you want to go to war, I don't want to be part of your justification for that. It just felt, again, like very disproportionate. It felt like everyone was losing sight of the fact that this is a YouTube channel we were talking about. And it was pretty surreal. And what's also been really frustrating is that, a lot of the outlets that did hit pieces on us when the story was breaking, now that the investigation is over, none of them have done follow-ups. None of them have done updates. None of them have issued, retractions, apologies, not a single one.
Well, that wouldn't assist their sort of ultimate narrative, would it? Quite frankly, but that's despicable. Truly despicable.
Sorry, Nate. One more thing that I've got to ask you real quick. Now, when you've touched on that, have you not got any grounds for defamation or anything? People that actively lied. If it's a slam dunk lie, can you not sue them?
So defamation in the United States is hard when you're a public figure. Right. So, you have freedom to say kind of more towards someone like me who did put themselves out there than, someone like the Covington Catholic kid who I don't know if you guys remember, he was wearing the MAGA hat and smirking, or someone like Kyle Rittenhouse. Like, these people are not public figures, so they have more protections than I would in this case. But again, there are definitely, I think, outlets and individuals who cross the line of like, okay, you're not just giving your opinion, you're actually saying things that are like a binary fact that either is true or it's not. And it's not true, and you're asserting that it is, and it's damaging to my reputation, like the idea that I had been charged, like the idea that, I had been arrested or things like that. Like, this is a provable, either it's real or it's not real. There are people who cross that line. But again, I'm going to be honest, we still owe family money for the legal fees that we incurred during the investigation. Yeah. And so the idea of, taking more people to court, it's just, when we don't have our bank accounts back, it's just something that's frankly not feasible right now, sadly.
I guess as well, like, to a certain degree, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but one would imagine an element of it is I don't know, trying to put a little bit of it behind you to at least move on potentially as well, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I know my mom is still someone who's like very incensed on our behalf, and she's trying to write to people in government to see like what could we do, especially with the bank accounts to get it back done. And like it's our money and we want it back. But also, you're right, part of it is just like this has been going on in our lives now for I don't even know how many months, over a year, and it is emotionally draining to be in like my lawyer's a great lawyer. I hope I never have to hear from him again, frankly, because it's just like if you're dealing with this stuff, things are probably not going well. But uh, yeah, the defamation stuff. If we could find like a law firm who would want to represent us like pro bono, I know some people do that, or potentially on like a split if winnings are awarded, I would be open to that. And that's something that my mom has like urged me to look into, but it's just kind of like there's so much still that we're trying to sort out.
Mm,
It's just this has been a total avalanche of bad things that we have to try to work through.
mm.
Yeah, I'm
So
really sorry to hear that. It's horrible. It's horrible. Scary as well, right? When you find yourself you're a
Yeah.
puppet in a much, much bigger game, like a
That's
Biden
it.
versus
Yeah.
Trump game and a USA versus Russia game. Suddenly you're
Right.
a pawn in that other people are moving around at will. That must be terrifying. Sorry, Nate.
No,
you
it,
go.
it is very terrifying. And like I said, like the idea that our YouTube videos would be used as like a pawn that like, oh, we were like trying to sow dissent between like Republicans and Democrats or between Russia and America. And it's like, whoa, like no, that's it. It was it felt very violating to be used in that way.
but I also, I guess because of the scale of it, you talk geopolitical scale, like scary, but also, I mean, that sense of helplessness as well. You're just like, wow, yeah, no, I've just got to watch this kind of not necessarily ride out, but yeah, I mean, your options are quite limited in that, I'm sure, when you're
Yeah.
sort of looking at it all.
No, definitely. And I kept thinking about the January 6th people who, kind of endured, they were accused of trying to overthrow the government. A lot of them just kind of like
Mm,
walked around the Capitol building. There are people who actually did go to prison for the whole January 6th fiasco. And I can't imagine that feeling of helplessness because, we had more resources than a lot of people would, even just because of our family and things like that. At least some people were familiar with our content and knew it was crazy. But I could only imagine how easy it would be for them to go after people who had even less than we did. And that was what was really terrifying about it. I know I've had family members say, "Are you really comfortable living in America after everything that happened?" And it's like, well, frankly, and this is almost a black pill, but it has shown me that no matter how free a government like claims to be, if they want to get you, they will, and it doesn't matter which government we're
mm,
talking about. You guys in the UK, I think, are seeing that as well with what's going on with your social media arrests and things like that. Like, if the government wants to get you, they basically will. There's not much you can do to fight it, and it sounds defeatist, but it's just pragmatically how things are.
that's the reality of it, isn't it? Really, I
Yeah.
guess. So, I guess just to sort of lay it out. Again, yeah, you said long story, right? Definitely long story. So,
Yeah.
investigation, no charges, done, cleared. You are a free woman. Don't want to assume your gender. I'm
Yeah.
joking, really. So you're all free now. It's all good. You're all cleared.
Yeah. We don't have any like lingering issues, I guess. We're back in the States now, and obviously like our file is a complicated one because this like there was an investigation, but we worked with the State Department so they could like kind of re-examine everything and just ensure there's no like other outstanding legal issues that we have. And no, we are all clear, which feels good to say. But I've even I can pass a background check, which is cool, but social media search might bring up some interesting stuff. Yeah, that's basically where we're at.
Okay. And so now you're left with, because I know, I mean, YouTube yeeted you completely.
They did, yeah.
So what is it? What are you currently doing? Like, if you don't mind me
So
asking, what is it that you and what's the trajectory? So what are you currently doing, and where are you trying to get to?
sure. Well, I mean, I'm glad you brought up YouTube because like along with the seized assets and the like defamation, the YouTube channel is also one of the things that has been basically done to us in light of this, and that is still not rectified, and that ideally we would fight to get back, but it's just kind of, there's a lot of fallout that's resulted from this. But yeah, YouTube deleted all of my channels. Like they didn't just delete the TEDit channel, they also deleted my personal channel and even my Mediaholic channel. So I have no presence on YouTube right now. I'm still like, it's kind of like Nick Fuentes or Alex Jones. I'm allowed to be on YouTube if it's someone else's channel. And I think, one of our producers who used to work with us, who we're still friends with, he did say like, it seems based on the rules that like I could be on a YouTube channel if someone else owned it. And like, even if it was like a show I was on, like hosting, as long as I didn't own it. But
Okay, interesting.
it's been frustrating to try and get in touch with someone at YouTube because we now have people in government who would be willing to talk to them and say, yeah, this is closed. Nothing came of it. Like but we don't even have anyone at YouTube who's willing to speak with us. I had a YouTube rep. I've tried emailing, crickets, trying to tag them publicly hasn't worked. And so it's just kind of been one of those like, all right, I don't really know what would the next steps be. I am lucky at least that it was, I think just YouTube and TikTok are the ones that banned me. I'm still on Instagram, still on Facebook, still on X. But I mean, and that kind of answers your next question. That's where kind of I've been hanging out is X, IG, and Facebook, which I've never really been a big Facebook user, but now that I don't have YouTube, much more so. And eventually would like to get to a point, I guess, where I'm doing live streams, probably on X, Rumble, Facebook, and maybe Twitch or Kick if I'm trying to like be trendy with the kids. I've heard of those platforms before. But it's like pretty crazy because I used to have an editor and like, all of this stuff. And now it's almost like we're back to square one where it's like just me and a laptop.
Do you think there was someone at the DOJ or possibly at the FBI that contacts somebody at YouTube and says,
Yes.
yeet this person?
I think if it wasn't the FBI, it was definitely the media, because after this story broke, the media was reaching out to YouTube almost immediately saying, so this person who has a YouTube channel is being accused of peddling Russian propaganda, and yet they still have a YouTube channel. Does that mean YouTube supports Russian propaganda? Like they're doing that. And so I think YouTube basically just caved to the pressure that was being exerted, definitely from the media. I also wouldn't be surprised by if it was from the FBI as well. I do suspect that the FBI is why I've been debanked so many times. I've been debanked by 4 separate financial institutions, which has also been
sorry, that's happened since.
Since once the investigation started, our bank basically informed us that we could no longer be their customer anymore, so we had to find another bank, and then that happened 3 more times.
Fucking hell.
And they also debanked my brother-in-law and my mother.
What?
How? Yeah, for being connected to us. Oh, and one of my old podcast hosts has also been debanked. Basically, I think having any connection to us. I'm not sure if there was like a list of my known associates, people I had sent bank transfers to that was sent around. Oh, also Odyssey. The Odyssey, we used to work as consultants for them. Their bank account was also closed. So it was, and I hate that it wasn't just us that was affected by this. There are a lot of people who were either friends with us, related to us, or worked with us who were also blindsided by this to varying degrees, and it's just been a huge injustice all around.
That's insane.
You don't have to give me the specifics, but I take it they're all like American banks, like Chase or something.
Yes, they're all American banks. I will throw specifically American Express under the bus. They can go to hell. We had just signed up for platinum cards for our entire company, which carries like a fee of like, I don't know, like $500 or something per card. And they debanked us like 2 months later. And I was like, all right, are you able to refund us the fees you've just taken? And they said no. And I asked, are you able to prorate it for the months that we've been a customer for? And they also said no. So they charged us annual fees and then booted us. So that's fun.
Scummy.
What scumbags.
Yeah. No, it like those September, October, November, like I just cannot describe like how much there was new bad news like every day coming in of like, oh yeah, there's this way that you're getting screwed over now. And it's like amazing.
And it
Yeah.
all comes back
Also, I
to-
was pregnant when this was happening.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
But like the crux of it, that the accusation is of peddling Russian propaganda, and there was nothing there other than that you hosted or shared a Tucker video. Like,
Right,
you
and
weren't
this is
talking
something
about,
that-
like how great Khrushchev was, or he was a massive
No, and-
Yeltsin fan, or like it doesn't.
Absolutely not. And that the way
doesn't
you
make
can know
sense.
that this wasn't happening is that if it was happening, they definitely would have broadcasted it, right? There would have been like, oh, can you believe like this? But no, there was nothing like that. And they know that there was nothing like that because they were in our company Discord server. So they could see how the workflow was going. They could see that, Tim Pool was doing his own thing. Benny Johnson, they're all doing their own things. They knew that there was no, yeah, it was totally whatever they wanted to say. And since this all happened, obviously the individual creators themselves have also come out and said like, no, we did whatever we wanted. Yeah, there was never any truth to that. And again, it was frustrating is that like my content has also somehow been come into this, and there was not even DOJ was claiming that my content was Russian propaganda. And again, like if they had proof, they definitely would have presented that, but they didn't.
I don't even know
Yeah.
what pro-Russian propaganda is, what it would look like, what that means. Like what like actual GRU, what like praising Lenin or something. I don't. What would it be? What would it be even? Like it doesn't make.
Well, I don't know. According to, I think it was the New Yorker, just literally every single one of our videos, I guess, which is pretty crazy because, most of our content was focused on like totally different things. Taylor Hansen, he would go around the US, he would do kind of like man on the street interviews. He covered protests as well. Yeah.
That's mad. Well, I mean, it's a testament to your resilience. So I've got to say that, massive testament to your resilience. So I guess you sort of alluded to it. So you're going to try and presumably build back up and maybe begin creating content, streaming again, that sort of thing. I mean, obviously you said you are still making content, on Instagram.
Yeah,
and X,
we're just post on X, Facebook, Instagram, and things like that. And I mean, there was a long time where like all this was happening, where we debated whether we would even ever make content again. There were a lot of people in the media, even on the conservative side, who we would have thought, I guess, wouldn't believe the things that they were saying about us, who seemed to go along with the narrative, and that was disappointing to see. So there was, a time where we're like, is it even worth coming back and doing content? But it really it's very bothersome to see the false narrative surrounding you live on. And so for that reason, if none other, we did feel like, okay, well, we got to try to at least clear our names. Like it's we don't want to have the world think that we're trying to subvert elections. It's not a comfortable place to be in. And it has been nice to kind of like be back. And so my husband isn't the only one who gets my hot takes from Twitter anymore. I can share them with everybody. And yeah, it's kind of been like frustrating to see on the one hand how quickly everyone forgets about it, but also sort of nice. For a lot of the content that I'm doing now, it's just, content that I would have done before this. It's not all about our scandal, but at the same time, what happened to us was really messed up, and I don't want people to forget about it. Like we still don't really have resolution for, like we've mentioned, a lot of the things that happened. So it's been kind of a double-edged sword being back. Also, like I said, like the legal fees are still looming on us. So, it's nice to have that source of revenue again, to be able to start to pay back what we owe. And, we are simultaneously hoping that maybe the more we speak about this, maybe someone who can help will feel like they want to help. And there are people that we're in touch with at the DOJ who like, no, this is closed, but they're, you know, they're trying to advocate for us, but their hands are kind of tied because it's this leviathan of bureaucracy. And that's also been kind of frustrating to see, is that, you know, even sometimes, even when people want to help, even in government, they're not able to because of, you know, whatever interdepartmental politics or hierarchies.
I'd be inclined to get sarcastic about it, lean into it, like go to like the FSB building in St. Petersburg with a loudspeaker saying, "Guys, I did you a solid. At least you can pay me in rubles.
Where are
Come
my
on."
rubles?
Like, yeah.
Well, my husband and I have kind of joked about that since, but it's like, I've always thought that St. Petersburg was cool. I would have wanted to visit, but it's like, I guess I can't now, just because it's like, that would probably be a whole other international incident.
Jesus.
Yeah. Oh man.
Oh, dear,
I feel really sorry for you. Your name should be, or is really, shorthand for a complete injustice.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's also, I mean, now that like, the further we are removed from the situation, the more we can kind of laugh about it. So my husband plays Eve. I don't know if you are familiar with that. It's this game. It's this giant online game where you basically you're space pirates exploring, and they're different corporations. It's like a very intense online game, and he used to play with a bunch of Russians. Not for propaganda purposes. He also plays with like Chinese people, British people. Yeah. But one of the things that was in the indictment also was that he Googled what time it was in Moscow.
Yeah.
And that was also in the indictment.
What?
And I told him, like, Liam, I swear to God, if we go to jail because of your stupid game, I'm going to be mad. I'm going to be pissed. But yeah, that's actually also in the indictment. So you can kind of see, it was like, are you serious? Now, anytime I Google anything, I'm very like aware of like, all right, is there a way that my FBI guy can like spin this? Because and then that's another thing, just like if nothing else, the huge violation of privacy. Like me and the FBI, we have zero secrets anymore. They search my entire house. Any Google search that I've done for the past several years, they're all up on any weird medical issues I've had during my pregnancies, because you know I've been Googling a lot of stuff with that. So it's just a weird place to be in. You know, what can you do after the fact aside from try to laugh at it, I guess.
Yeah, I mean that sort of example you give there really does exemplify how tenuous it seemingly all was. Like, oh, he Googled what time it was. Like, oh, sorry, you're not allowed to know what time.
Yeah, and
it is in another country
crazy
right now.
because
I mean, what the hell?
After, like, when this was all happening, we actually like, you know, we moved, and we were kind of just like, I don't want to say living off grid because that makes us sound like we were like Ted Bundy, but you know, we were like off social media. My YouTube channel and account was completely nerfed, so I had to start a new one. And like I didn't feel like watching anything political because a lot of time it was just about me and negative things. So I was like, okay, like let me find my new YouTube niche. And I started watching these videos about Yakutia, or I'm probably saying it wrong, but it's the coldest place in the world. And it's just like videos about how people live there. I thought it was super interesting. I was curious about like what the GDP is there, because it seems like it's very rural. But then I realized me Googling that even could probably be another thing they put in an indictment, because it has to do with, and it just kind of like, I felt so powerless at that point. Like I can't even Google something I'm curious about because of a YouTube video, because I know that there'll be a way that they could take that out of context and try to make me seem like a Russian spy.
Yeah, that's terrifying.
Russian spies probably know what time it is in Moscow, by the way.
Yeah.
They probably don't need to Google it.
I mean, I've got like, I'm thinking at home, I've got copies of like the Gulag Archipelago and like the Communist Manifesto and stuff. Like I'm interested in like Putin's early career, and like I Google all about like
Bad News Bears, Bo.
submarines and the whole 9 yards. It's like, oh yeah, that's but
Yeah.
you didn't do anything wrong. We haven't done anything wrong. That's the thing.
And what's crazy is that, you know, when you have a warrant against you and they search you, that warrant, if they if they find evidence of a crime unrelated to what the warrant is for, they can still charge you for that. Like, if they have a search warrant for like a theft and then they find a dead body in your house, they can charge you for murder. So not only do we not have any charges in relation to this whole tenant thing, we don't have any charges, period. So they searched our entire house, all of our electronics. They went through our bank accounts and they didn't find anything worth charging us for. So again, like, it's not just that we weren't charged in relation to this. They couldn't find anything to charge us over. And trust me, they definitely would have if they could. Like, they showed that, we even asked, and my lawyer says sometimes they do this. We asked if they would be willing to release some of the funds from the company in order for us to pay for legal representation for the company. And they said no. They could have done that. They chose not to. There are things that they could have done to cooperate with us where they chose not to, even though according to our lawyer, he's seen, he was saying he's represented cases where his client was charged with like embezzlement and stuff for, various things, and they got to keep that money. That's not even what we're asking for. We're not being accused of stealing anything or like selling drugs or something. This is like literally money we made from contracts with the Blaze and TPUSA. All we want is our own money back, and they won't even do that for us.
It's kind of mad, really. It's interesting, isn't it, how you say that? Well, you get searched for everything. The warrant's there, but they could charge you for anything. So in effect, actually, what that shows is how squeaky clean you are, to be honest.
Yeah. I do not live as interesting a life as the DOJ was, trying to make it seem.
Yeah, that does show that you're like clean as a whistle.
Yeah, basically.
It couldn't, in fact, you can look at it one way. It couldn't be more of a vindication or an exoneration of you, ultimately, that it came back completely and utterly clean.
Yeah, like no charges for anybody. And it's funny because they sent obviously a big show of force when they were searching and raiding our home, and it was pretty crazy because it's like no one even within like 6 degrees of this case has ever been even accused of doing something violent, or it's not like they thought what we were going to have like a drugs or human trafficking or weapons in the home. Like we're YouTubers. Everyone is super nerdy. Like these are probably the squeaky cleanest people. This is the most white collar stuff you could imagine. And so to be rated like I was El Chapo was pretty crazy.
Yeah, like treating you like you're an actual counter-espionage agent.
Yeah.
Like madness. I'm glad you've got over it though. It's behind you, rather, at least to a certain extent.
Yeah, I mean, we were like, there's still stuff we're dealing with, but we're in a much better place than we were a year ago. 100%, absolutely. We were kind of, at least like my husband, he doesn't want anything to do with this space anymore, and I don't blame him. But I can do stuff on my socials. We're not under FBI investigation. We're back stateside after being in Asia. So like things are much better than they were. Hopefully we continue to see things being resolved. Like if we get YouTube and our money back, that would be amazing. But I hope that we're in the process of just continuing every month and every day to put more and more of it behind us.
Yeah. Again, I go back to the testament to sort of resilience there. I mean, it's what a mad thing that you've been through. What a crazy thing you've been through. So has anyone, just out of curiosity, the people that worked with the company, have, the other YouTubers, have they reached out to you at all? Have they contacted you? Have they, said how
it's one of those things where
like
it's awkward and weird, and everyone's very aware that the FBI is like listening to our communications and things like that. I've kind of like been in contact with like Lord Southern a little bit, and she got dragged into Canadian Parliament to testify about all of this, which was crazy. She's done nothing wrong. She's one of the best Canadian content makers out there at the moment, as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, it's just kind of everyone's in a weird position. Like, hey, remember how the FBI alleged that we were running Russian propaganda? It's strange. I've been, in touch with our old producers who like our employees on the tenant side. You know, it was really sweet. This my producer that we had worked with for a long time, and then he, like, on my own content, kind of in conjunction with the Blaze, and then he worked with us on some Tenet stuff, like, you know, my first interview back. Like, he would always do this clip up segments that I could post on my socials. He still did that, you know, for our interview I did with Dr. Drew. So, you know, we had actually, I think, some of the best people in the industry stateside working with Tenet, and it was like kind of sad that we had put together these amazing people, and then we, you know, couldn't work together anymore, and also now they're out of a job too, and that was what was really hard emotionally for us to deal with, is the fact that, like, all of, like, our friends, and like just knowing that they didn't have jobs anymore because of all the stuff that we were, like, getting swept up in. It was really sad, and that's still probably, like, what is, like, the most challenging. And like, I would never want to have such a large operation again, just because that responsibility is, like, it's something you should take seriously when it's other people's jobs. Yeah.
Well, it's an injustice that's been done to both of you, isn't it? Well, all of you, should I say? So yeah, it's it's just kind of mad, genuinely kind of mad that to be sort of cleared of everything, no charges, nothing, and then still a pariah, effectively. I mean, it's
Well, and actually something that was, like, again, I hate the media more than words can ever say. Like, Zero, we came out, we said, like, hey, by the way, I don't know if everyone's forgotten about this, but yeah, that investigation we were under, that's closed. You know, we reached out, we didn't hear back from the FBI or the DOJ really after December. You know, we were the most important people in the world for like 2 months, and then it's essentially everything just, like, went away. We didn't hear back from them, which was, like, very strange, because for a while they were hounding our lawyer, and, you know, we were in constant communication with them, but then everything just kind of stopped. And we kept asking our lawyer, like, what's going on? Like, should we ask for an update? And our lawyer was like, I would wait. Like, you know, like, let's give it some space. Let's see what happens. So we gave it like 4 months. And then, you know, he eventually reached out and said, like, where are we at? And that's when we got confirmation that the case was closed and investigation was over. Tim Pool, he says on his end, he was informed by the feds that things were closed in December. So there's a possibility they left us hanging for 4 months unnecessarily. But then we didn't end up going public in September. We were trying to get more resolution behind the scenes during that time. From April to September, we thought, okay, great, it's closed. Now where's our money? Can we get a statement from the DOJ confirming that it's closed, that this was bunk? Again, they've refused to do any of that for us. And so it was frustrating to see that when we did say, by the way, it's closed, basically none of the outlets that had reported on the story offered that update or clarification. And the only time when a handful of outlets touched the story again is when I posted that I was back in the States. And you know, I did thank the, you know, State Department, FBI and stuff, and Border Patrol, because they basically, it took extra work for them to clear us. You know, I'm obviously like a complicated case. We still didn't do anything, but, you know, instead of just saying, like, take a hike, this looks like a headache, they actually looked at our file, confirmed with all the relevant people that there was nothing going on. We were clear. We appreciate that. Of course, a handful of outlets decided to run with that story as, you know, Trump is letting in this criminal. They thought it would be another way for them to attack Trump, when it's really is like, no, all they did was give us a fair shot and a fair hearing, and, you know, and look into what actually happened, and confirm with the FBI, like the most extensive background check you could have, that there was nothing that would prevent us from being able to re-enter and things like that. But I thought that was very interesting, how you're not going to report that the case is closed. You're not going to report that there were never any charges, but you will report that, oh, now there's like a Russian operative on the loose in America. These are the worst people you could possibly imagine.
Yeah, you really can't hate the media enough. That's insane.
Yeah.
Insane. Well, normally we would end our interviews by going, what does it mean to be English? But it doesn't really work with you, does it?
No, not really. Unfortunately, it seems like you guys have your own problems that are
fair enough.
Right.
where I huge thank you for your time, obviously.
Thank you for having
Genuinely.
me. Thank you for letting me trauma dump. I apologize if I'm kind of all over the place with this story. Next time I'll
No, I
bring like
think
a board with a timeline and like my little red strings so I can look like a crazy. And that's the thing, like, obviously I couldn't really talk about things as they were happening, but even like I realized if I could, I'd sound like a schizophrenic about how,
yeah.
the FBI was, yeah. So
No, I think I hope people give you a fair shot. I hope people watch with
thank
an open
you.
mind. I know our audience, our subscribers. I don't want to speak for them, but I'm pretty certain they will. They're a cool bunch, so I'm sure they'll give you a fair shot. Is there anywhere specifically you'd like people to find you? Anything
Sure.
to
So
sort of promote and push?
I've been on X the most. I'm just at the Lauren Chen. X has been a lot of fun, a good way to get back into social media. I'm also on Instagram at the Lauren Chen as well, and Facebook. I'm on Rumble. I haven't posted anything there since I've been off social media, but if I do start doing videos again, that they would definitely be up there as well.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.